Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of the Two Man Game. As usual, we've got me, Cone, and Ryan here running it. Ryan, how have you been?
Not too bad, man. It's Connor and I's dog's birthday tomorrow.
Shout
She's
out to
sitting here
Luna.
right next to me. Hopefully she doesn't bark or paw at me to pet her continuously throughout the episode. But I'm not doing too bad, man. I just got back from the D'Anthony Melton funeral. It was pretty sad to see how
Yeah,
broken he just got.
yeah.
We're
R.I.P.
recording this the night of Friday, November 17th. It's about 8:30 right now. So, we're watching a lot of games. I've got big money on Denny of Avdija hitting a three. So, if you see me start
Ryan's
going
in
crazy
full
with Denny as a
basketball
three,
sicko mode over there at the moment.
just know I will
Yeah.
give $5 to one person who comments Denny for three if he hits his three.
Okay, and we'll see the live reaction likely if it does happen. But yeah, it's been a little bit since we've done a pod. Ryan and I both been busy with some stuff. The season going on. Ryan also has a cough right now, so if he coughs throughout this, just know that that's what's going on. There it is. He's not going to give me COVID or anything through the screen. But yeah, today thought we could go ahead and do our first month of the season All Stars. It's been about a month into the season so far. I think there's still like 7-ish days or so, like 1 week, half a week left until it's been officially a full month. But we thought we'd go ahead and what did I even just say? Thought it would be fun to go ahead and do one of these all-star like early picks because it's always fun to look back and see who was on an all-star team a month in, as opposed to a lot more big names are actually going to pop up on this list as we get later into the season. So yeah, that's going to be the bulk of this. I do want to go ahead and start things off the top, though, with the biggest trade rumor. Zach LaVine and the Bulls are reportedly both interested in potentially working towards a trade. He has been long overdue for this deal. The Chicago Bulls are just wasting everyone's time. His, DeRozan's, Vooch's, Alex Caruso, who apparently like 30 teams out of the 29 other ones are ready to line up and try and trade for
30 out of 29.
Yeah, 30 out of 29 teams. That's how much
Even the expansion teams that Adam Silver's been kind of talking about want him.
Yeah, even the new Seattle and Vegas teams that are likely coming up here at some point soon are also looking to trade for Alex Caruso, and they don't even exist yet. So it seems like a fire sale might be coming for the Bulls at some point soon. At the very least, LaVine's going to be dealt. Some of the top candidates to trade for him include the Lakers, the Knicks, the Miami Heat, and the Philadelphia 76ers, Ryan's favorite team. I haven't asked you how you feel about LaVine as a Sixer. I guess we'll go ahead and do that, and then we can move on into the All-Stars.
I feel like it would depend on the package, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're able to get away with just doing salary filler and picks, then I think it's pretty chill. But other than that, I'm not trading like any one of it. I'm not throwing Jaden Springer. I mean, I guess you could throw Jaden Springer if they really want him, but
yeah,
I don't know, man. I just feel like the team's kind of clicking right now, and I feel like it'd be better for them to build around the edges, at least as of now, and maybe save their money for free agency.
Yeah, I feel that too. I also just LaVine as a $40 million guy. I don't like that kind of money for. He's just pretty much a scorer. Like, he does a couple things here and there. Sometimes he holds his own defensively, but he's not a great defender. He's not a great passer. He's just a bucket, which, buckets are huge for a lot of teams. But I don't know, tying up $40 million in him when you could have a max slot this offseason if you're the Sixers. I don't love the idea of that for me. And like you said, they're clicking too. Like, why not just run this thing out, see if you could potentially get some guy to come over on a big contract in the offseason. Maybe one of these Clippers guys. The Clippers have been playing very bad so far as we're recording this. They play the Rockets tonight, so we won't go in too hard on them because maybe they finally get a win. But up to this point, the Harden Clippers have been an absolute disaster, have not won a game, lost the Memphis Grizzlies at home, who have 2 wins on the season. So it's been terrible. And meanwhile, the Sixers have been thriving post James Harden trade. They've lost a couple games back to back. I think part of that was Kelly Oubre, the whole car incident. So hopefully he's well soon. I think he's supposed to come back actually within a few weeks, which is exciting
no Nick
to hear.
Batum either, man.
Yeah, no Nick Batum out there. Sixer legend Marcus Morris getting minutes is a big blow to the Sixers.
I mean,
well,
that's basically another subtraction.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just not been pretty over there for LA. So maybe like a PG or a Kawhi or one of those guys becomes available, both of whom I like a lot for the Sixers. So yeah, if I were them, I'd just stand pat. Maybe you make some upgrades on the edges like you were mentioning and see what happens in the offseason. I would like a guy like Caruso way better than going all in for LaVine for you guys.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. So that's kind of our quick thoughts on the LaVine trade. But now let's go and get into our all-star picks. So if you don't know the format of the all-star game, they're going back to the conference versus conference format, West versus East.
Thank goodness, bro.
So I like the captain's thing. I don't think I'm alone in that. I like that. But it's 2 guards, 3 front court players, typically 2 forwards in the center. And then for backups, you've got 2 guards, 3 forwards, and 2 wild card spots. Also, we have some honorable mentions. And keep in mind, this is as of November 17th. So anything we say in this video that changes afterwards, we don't know about that. I don't know about you, but there are some guys who probably will be on this list or would be if they played more games, but haven't played much up to this point. There's one guy in particular that I'm going to talk about who I think would almost assuredly be on the team if he had played more so far this season, but he's only shown up, I think, like 3-4 times, which, it's early going in the season, but that's like 30% of the year so far. So
I may or may not have that same player actually on the roster, even though he's only played 3 games, but
okay, well, we'll see if we're talking about the same guy. But yeah, I guess we can go ahead and get things started. Do you want to start the West or the East?
Let's do the East. And just a heads up, I wore my Enjoy hat since we're talking positively about most of these people. We're not really trashing anyone on this episode, so I had to.
Well, we already trashed
Enjoyer Clippers. This is a good episode for the Enjoyers.
We kind of trashed the Clippers, and we talked about D'Anthony Melton getting his ankles completely snatched from at the beginning of the episode. So,
and shout out Ish Smith for just breaking Giannis, by the way.
Yeah, it happens, but it'll be a positive episode for the most part. As we go through these players too, we're going to talk about kind of how their teams are playing, which is just natural because team success is somewhat a part
Real
of
quick,
all
can we, before we get into this, can I ask your opinion on something? Because I was having this conversation earlier. So shout out my boy Matt, by the way. We went on a little adventure today. It had like an hour drive, and we basically came up with my team while we were doing this. So
yeah, Ryan had help.
So my team's a little bit of a brain trust thing. So he helped me with some of the research, So shout out Matt for that. But we were discussing how much team success should play into like all-star things. Because personally, I'm on the front that if you're like a really mid player on like the worst team in the NBA, and that's the only reason you're putting up good stats, then I, understand why I think being a bad team and putting up the quote unquote empty stats should kind of like deter you from making the team. But if you're a player that's like supposed to be really good, like let me see if I can think of an example for someone I have on one of my lists that's like obvious.
Like I'm guessing I guess a good example would be like if this Grizzlies team is still playing this bad, but John Morant was out there hooping, like
or
something like that.
Yeah, maybe I really don't. Maybe I really. This is bad because I actually have a lot of people on good teams. But like, here's a good example. Like, let's say you had, the Hawks were pretty bad a little bit ago, the start of the season, right? Like, let's say you had Trae Young averaging 30 points a game, and Trae Young's a good player, and they have good players, but the Hawks have been bad. I don't think that should really hurt Trae Young's case. And now a case where I think it could hurt him, for example, is Desmond Bane on the Grizzlies. Desmond Bane's a really good player, and he's averaging like 25 a game. But because the Grizzlies are so bad and he's not their top player, I think that kind of hurts him making the All-Star versus someone who's like an established star, if that makes sense. Which I see what you're saying. How it should be, but I do think that if you're an established, really good player and your team just happens to suck, that it shouldn't really hurt you too much.
I think I'm kind of split on it. I do think team success should factor in at least a little bit, but yeah. I don't take it into account nearly as much as say like an All-NBA selection or something like that, where I feel like that matters more. Like as long as you're not awful, like if you're not like the worst team in I don't think the worst team in the conference will pretty much ever get an All-Star, because typically if a guy's playing up to an All-Star level, you're not going to be the worst team in the conference. But I do have a guy on here who his team is playing like really poorly so far, but he's been playing well. So we can talk about that when we get there. But ultimately, I think it's a bit of a balance. I'm someone who believes it should factor in at least a little bit. Like if you've got this great team, like you're the 1 seed by far, and there's a guy who's putting up a little bit worse numbers compared to a guy who's putting up better numbers, but is like 5-6 spots on the standings.
That's the example I was going to bring up. Like Drew Holiday making it for the Bucks last year. It was last year?
Mm-hmm.
And like people were arguing there were like guards that had better numbers, but Drew was like the 3rd best player, putting up also decent numbers on a really good team.
Yeah, so and I mean context matters a lot too, because like last year they were without Chris Middleton for a lot of the year, and Giannis was dealing with some injuries, and Drew had to step up a lot in their absence, kept them afloat. They're one of the best teams in the East even still. So I think that context matters too. It really is kind of a case by case basis, I feel like, with some of these guys. So it's tough. But
I just truly think that if you're like a really good player, and like you're not, the stats aren't empty. You know what I mean? Like you're not like your whole starting 5's injured and you have some G League guy putting up 30 a game just because he's the only one that can get the basketball up in the air. Like he probably shouldn't be an all-star, but if you're a really good player and your team just happens to be bad, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying.
Context really matters. But I was just curious about that conversation because Matt and I were talking about it in the car earlier.
Yeah, let us know what y'all think down below in the comments. Also, I always forget to do this at the start, but leave a like and subscribe on the YouTube channel if you're here. If you're ever on one of the audio platforms, make sure to download, leave 5 stars, all those other things, and come over to YouTube and do the stuff I just mentioned. Okay, let's start with the Eastern Conference. We're going to go through starters first. I guess we could do the 2 guards, then 2 forwards, then the center spot. Who are your starting guards in the Eastern Conference? I feel like I have an idea.
They have the same first name.
Interesting. Okay, go ahead. I mean, I know who it is, right? I know who it is, but tell the people.
I have Halliburton and Maxey.
Okay.
Halliburton putting up above 20 points a game with like 12 assists per game. The Pacers have been really good. Mm-hmm. And Maxey, as of tonight, is averaging 27 points a game on the second, or I don't know what they are now, second or third best team in the East. So
yeah, they're the 2nd seed at the moment.
So that's who I got.
Okay. For me, it's tough. I think Tyrese Halliburton's a lock. I think I have him there regardless. For me, it's been between Maxey and Donovan Mitchell.
It was also between Maxey and Mitchell for me. I probably went with the bias pick.
Yeah, I went with Donovan Mitchell just because the Cavs have been dealing with a number of injuries, and he hasn't had a lot of help so far this season. He's putting up almost 30 points per game, 29 points per game.
You're saying he has less help. So Maxey has more help, but is putting up just as good, if not the same stats?
No, Donovan Mitchell's putting up better stats. 29 points per game, 49% from the field, 40% from deep, 5.3 assists. Like, he's got him beat. It's close. I was really back and forth between Maxey and Halliburton, or Maxey and Mitchell. Halliburton was kind of a lock for me.
Yeah, I agree.
What he's been doing for Indiana. But yeah, I think he's the lock at this point. Mitchell and Maxey could both go either way, but I think both of them are very clearly all-star so far. So Maxey is, spoiler alert, still on my list. I don't think anybody's surprised by that.
Donovan is my first reserve.
Yeah. So, okay. But we can move on now to the forwards. I actually realized I didn't put Maxey's name because he was a foregone conclusion for me. So I got to move one of these guys off. We'll get to that in a moment.
You put Maxey on the team, bro?
Well, I had him in my starting guard spot at first, and then I moved Donovan Mitchell up there, and I didn't put him back down the where he was supposed to be.
No Maxey on Cones, also putting up 27.5.
Yeah, like, whatever.
Good 3-point shooting. Not an all-star.
Not an all-star in my book. The forwards for the
You can go first. That one first and the last one. Wait, real quick. We both have Embiid at center.
Yeah, Embiid's the center.
Okay.
There's no one else to go there.
Yeah, I mean, putting up just as good number. I mean, he had a stinker against the Celtics. His last game, but
it's the Al Horford effect.
I'm pretty much Al Horford owns him. I don't understand, but he's just like until Al Horford. I think Al Horford's just going to stay in the NBA till he's 50, just to curse the Sixers, whether he was on their team or against them. It's just I don't know.
He's been a scourge on the Sixers fan base for quite some time now.
Yeah, but I mean, Embiid putting up 30 points a game, career high in assist and decent shooting. I mean, and his defense, like when he's putting in the effort, which occasionally doesn't happen, his defense has looked awesome. Mm-hmm. I think the new Nick Nurse offense has really helped Embiid's playmaking, and he still is sometimes slow in decision making. He's had a couple fourth quarters this year where he's taken over, but he's also shown glimpses of like, what the heck are you doing, bro? But I mean, he's cleared away the best center in the East. I don't think there's any debate on that.
Not really a conversation for anyone else.
Yeah. And then who are your wings?
I've got Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
That's who I had as well.
Yeah, I feel like really the guard spots were kind of up in question.
Yeah.
Tatum has been great so far with the Celtics as the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think best record in the NBA right now, if not tied for it. And then Giannis is putting up amazing stats. Again, the Bucks have been up and down, but so far he's been their best player easily. So yeah, not a lot of controversy there in the starting lineup. And then off the bench, my first guard is Tyrese Maxey. I think
mine's Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah. So okay, there we go. So those are kind of the top 6, I would say, at this point, especially when we're talking about guards.
This is where it might get more interesting now.
Who is your second guard off the bench?
All right. I picked Jalen Brunson from the New York Knicks.
Pick Jalen Brunson. Okay.
So I don't know his stats off the dome, but I remember looking at it earlier. It was something like 23 points per game, like 3 or 4 assists and a couple boards. But he should have been an all-star last year. And Julius Randle was starting off really poorly. He was really carrying the Knicks, and now Julius Randle's kind of picked it up, and Brunson's stats have probably went down a little bit because of that, but he's still been really good. And I just think there's some guards in the East that have been really inefficient this year and just really poor. Like there's a couple guys who I don't have on my team who are putting up good counting stats, but just have horrible efficiency and just have had a lot of stinker games. Like you can like pinpoint really bad games that they've had that have cost their teams. And I just think he should have been an all-star last year. Knicks are pretty solid team and they deserve one. So I want Brunson.
Yeah. For me, it's Damian Lillard is my second guard off the bench.
He's shooting 38%, bro.
It's been a slower start to the season for him. He's started.
Oh my god! No way you put a man shooting 38% on your team.
He's shooting 39%, but he's still playmaking at a high level. He's been super clutch for them so far. I know the shooting splits aren't great there, but I think Dame has to still be on this team. Like last game when they were missing Giannis, Dame went out there and cooked the Raptors for 30 some points, 12 dimes. I think this is the start of the Damian Lillard renaissance over there in Milwaukee. This again, the shooting splits I know have been rough, but the way he's clutched up for them and in games where Giannis has missed, he stepped up. Dame is still deserving of a spot in the All-Star team, in my opinion.
So I guess my only rebuttal on that is my other two guards that I have on here, or I think guard / combo guard, are having the stats are slightly worse, but way better efficiency, and they haven't really been putting up bad games like Dame has. I do think Dame's probably going to turn it around, and he'll probably end up making the team. But I just with the way he's been shooting, and he's had a couple games that have really cost them, and the Bucks have looked really mediocre to start the year, and they're currently losing to the Hornets. That I actually don't have Dame on my team at all.
I mean, I think that's fair. Maybe it is just recognition a little bit. Having Dame on this team at this point, maybe it just felt wrong to have a guy of his caliber.
I mean, you have Chris Middleton on your team too.
I do not have Chris Middleton, but
no, I'm just teasing.
Yeah, Dame. I think he hasn't been great, but I don't think he's been bad enough to be completely left off. I understand if you do, but I've still got Dame on this list.
So. Yeah, and I don't mean to put you on blast, man. I remember when I was making this team, I was just like I knew Dame had been bad, but I didn't realize he was shooting below 40%. And I was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's not great.
So I have neither him nor Trae Young on my team. Those were the kind of
I don't have Trae Young.
Those are the guys I was talking about, which if you look at their counting stats alone, you're like, oh, yeah, they look pretty good. And then you look at their efficiency and some other like stuff, and you're just like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
So I do think Dame ends up making the team.
Yeah.
But I don't think he should be on it now, in my opinion.
That's fair. Okay, moving on now to the forwards. I can go ahead and just go through my three. I've got Jimmy Butler, I have Bam Adebayo, and I have Kristaps Porzingis.
I have two of the same ones, actually. I have Bam and Jimmy, and I have Scotty Barnes.
I have Scotty Barnes later in my wild card section, but I put Porzingis here, unlike the spot up before.
So I guess my thing with Porzingis was I picked one of his teammates that hasn't been named yet, which I mean you're probably gonna guess who, to make the team. So I didn't want to give the Celtics 3 All-Stars because I gotta be somewhat of a hater. But Porzingis was one of my fringe guys.
It's tough with the Celtics. Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about. I went back and forth on having him on here or not. It's really hard. It feels, I mean, they've been good enough, I think, to earn 3 All-Stars. Like if we're just going off, and they've all been like good enough. I don't know. It's really tough. I don't know. It's because Jaylen Brown. It's Jaylen Brown. For those of you who have not caught on yet, JB's been good. It's just I don't know. Like he's not having the destroying the league season that he had last season. I think Porzingis' defense has been huge for them. The floor spacing, he's been really integral to the system. So in my opinion, Jason Tatum's a lock, and I think you could either go Jaylen Brown, Kristaps, or both of them, and I don't think you're wrong in that regard. It's just really difficult,
I mean, I'll spoil it. One of my last guys in was Jaylen Brown, but I was between them. I was going to pick one of them. At this point, I don't think I would pick both. I picked Brown just because I don't know. He brings a little bit more of the star power. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard because they both do other things very well. It's kind of hard. I don't know. They're very similar. Their stats are kind of close too.
Yeah, it's something I think you could go either way on this. I don't have Jaylen Brown on here just because he was one of the last guys cut. I could maybe slot him in over Dame the more that I look at this, but the last two guys I have are Scotty Barnes and Jalen Brunson, who I know you've already brought up before. So yeah, that's kind of how my team's looking right now. It does feel weird having Jaylen Brown off the list. It almost feels like the Celtics should have 3 All-Stars with how good they've been, but I don't know. It's again, you could go either way. It's really close.
I do want to ask you though, why you have KP. Is it just because the Celtics have been good? Because I do agree KP or Brunson or Brown should have been there, but I'm surprised you didn't have Scotty as one of your top wings. I mean, 21 points per game, 9.6 boards, 5.7 assists, shooting 38% from 3 with really, really good defense. I'm pretty surprised that is it just because you had the Celtics were better? Because I feel like overall Barnes has just had like an incredible year.
Yeah, Barnes has kind of been coming back down to earth as of recently. He's been struggling a little bit more out there. The Celtics, I think, have just also been really good. Porzingis, the reason I think his numbers are lower is because he's in a smaller role, but the defensive
absolutely.
impact
But he has been really good. Like the counting stats don't tell the whole story about how good Porzingis has
Yeah,
been.
like the defense he brings to the table, being that 7-3 guy, that shot blocker for them, the elite shooting that spaces the floor. I just think Porzingis is really integral to what that team does over there. So I had him right above Scotty Barnes. Also, again, like the Raptors are kind of middle of the pack at this point, and Scotty's been, I'm not going to say he's been regressing because he's still been perfectly fine, but he's definitely taken a bit of a step back from his really hot start. So I probably factored that in a little bit too, just with how they've been playing.
And so my last All-Star that we haven't mentioned yet is I have DeJounte Murray.
DeJounte, interesting. So, okay. I see. Wait, so you had Jaylen Brown on there. Who are you? Do you have an extra guy? Because I have 12, and I think
I have 12.
Who are you? Who else? Because you had Brunson.
I have Bam, Mitchell, Scotty, DeJounte, Jimmy, Brunson, and Jaylen Brown.
Is Dame Dame's the only guy you don't have.
Yeah.
But I don't have. I guess is it just Dame for DeJounte? No, because I don't have Jaylen Brown either. I'm just confused. Where I feel like, do I not have enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I have 7 reserves.
Wait, you don't have Maxey?
No, I do have Maxey. Maxey, Dame, Jimmy, Bam, Kristaps, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Brunson.
I don't have Kristaps.
Oh, you don't? Okay, there it is.
So I have JB and DeJounte. You had Kristaps and Dame.
Okay, I was going crazy. Okay,
continue. But anyways, my reasoning for DeJounte is just the Hawks, like Trae Young, I kind of just alluded to earlier, has been very, very all over the place to start the year. Like, okay, counting stats, but just the defense is never there, and the shooting has been horrendous. Playmaking's still there, as always, there will be. But DeJounte Murray is putting up, honestly, what I would call a career year, which is pretty crazy considering that year he had with the Spurs. But 22 points per game, shooting a career high 38.7% from 3, 5 boards, 6 assists, 1.5 steals. And he's been their best player on a team.
DeJounte's been pretty good. It's been a good start for them, which helps because
he's had a couple signature moments too, so I could put that in effect.
Yeah, Trae Young's been struggling at the score. His playmaking's still been great, but they've needed a guard to step up, and DeJounte Murray's been that guy so far. So yeah, shout out to him. Looking back, the more that I look at the Dame pick, I don't love it, if I'm being honest.
Sorry, I kind of flamed you, but
I think I just overlooked a little bit too much taking a look at the name recognition thing. So I'd probably go back.
It's what we were talking about earlier, though. Name does play a huge role.
One guy I think that we didn't talk about that I had on my list for a moment, but I took him off eventually was LaMelo Ball.
So I made a list of 20 and then cut it down to 12. LaMelo was on my list of 20.
Yeah, LaMelo's been really good so far. He's on fire over the past few games. 25 points, 28 points, 30 points, diming up, grabbing some steals. The Hornets haven't been good, which hurts his case a little bit. But if I went back, because originally I had LaMelo Ball in there instead of Tyrese Maxey when I messed up and I took LaMelo off the list to put Maxey in. Should have done it the other way, I think, keeping LaMelo potentially in there. Jaylen Brown, I think, also good guard to go in there. RJ Barrett is someone we didn't mention that I think deserves some recognition so far.
I have someone to mention if Bam wasn't my center pick. Who would you put as your third best center right now in the East?
Third best center right now in the East? I think Miles Turner is deserving.
I think Miles Turner is this is off the dome, but I believe he's shooting like 40% from 3.
Yeah, he's shooting I think 39. Yeah, 39.6%. Yeah.
And then so 17 points per game.
Yeah, 18 points, 50% from the field, 40% from deep, 7.5 boards, 1.7 blocks. Miles Turner's been incredible. He was one guy I also thought about for this list. It's tough when you have so many great players out there, and Bam and Embiid are clearly the best 2 bigs in the East so far this season. So it makes things difficult. But Kristaps as well, if you include him in that center conversation.
I think that's tough too. Kind of is. The Heat start off really bad, and it's like, why would we give them 2 All-Stars? But I mean, they've won 7 in a row, so I think they've they've kind of just been like, we're gonna do for now.
Man, the Heat annoy me. I swear to God, they no matter what happens, they find.
I think you left Duncan Robinson off your list, if we're being completely honest.
That's another guy I foolishly left off my list as well. So I'm just falling apart all over the place. On the
another guy I want to shout out was Kyle Kuzma, just because I think he's been pretty solid. The Wizards are just so bad. He's a guy like I talked about, like he's a really good player, but he's not like the star recognition. So I think him on a bad team doesn't really move the needle.
Yeah, he's been having one of his best seasons so far. It's just the Wizards have been so bad. I don't think you can give them an all-star at this point. So yeah, I think that's most of the guys I would mention out east.
Here's a question I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
If he was still healthy and putting up the same numbers, like let's say he's played every game his team has and he has the same numbers, is Cam Thomas an all-star?
I think you would have to be. I think you'd have to be. Again, yeah, when we're taking into account games played, Cam Thomas has played 8 games, which is a decent bit, but we went with a few guys over him. He's putting up 27 points per game, shooting well from the field or decently from the field. Not a great 3-point shooter, not much beyond the scoring, which is one big thing that does hurt Cam.
A little one-dimensional.
But yeah, I think he was putting up those numbers. It depends where the Nets are in the standings as well. Right now, they're the 9 seed. If they were a little bit higher up in the standings and Cam Thomas is putting up these similar numbers around the time the break comes around, I think he at the very least gets consideration. I don't know if he makes it over some of those other guys who might be a little more versatile, but I mean, when you're putting up like 27 points per game, you have to at least get some type of consideration, I think.
Was there anyone that you were kind of looking at that either they might have had the name recognition or you thought they were having a good year and then you kind of dug deeper in it and you're like, oh, never mind? Because for me, that was Zach LaVine. Because I guess with LaVine, I kind of have like this imprint on my brain of that like 50-point game he had. And I'm just like, oh yeah, LaVine's been cooking this year. And then I check his stats. He's averaging, I think, 21 points on like less than 40% shooting, I believe.
Yeah, he's been not very good over there. Seems checked out a lot of games, really ever since that like 50 piece against the Pistons where they lost. Hasn't really been the same. He probably just needs a new change of scenery at this point. One guy who has been turning it up a little bit as of late is Pascal Siakam. His stats aren't quite there yet to get him into that conversation, but he's, had a couple really good games over the past few, had a monster game against, I think it was the Mavericks, if I remember correctly, recently. So Siakam's kind of getting back to his form. He's someone that typically is in these all-star conversations. Again, he's not quite there numbers wise, but he's someone that I think eventually could get into that conversation. I was imagining that the Magic might have a couple of guys that could be, Paolo and Franz in particular.
Franz's shooting splits were a lot worse than I thought, though, when I checked.
What'd you say?
Franz's shooting splits were a lot worse than I thought he had.
Yeah, that's the thing is like neither one of them has popped up the page in a big way. Like Powell started slow, but now he's putting up 19 points per game, 40% from deep, which has been huge for him so far. Like it seems like he's starting to put it together. As the year goes on, I'm keeping an eye on him as a potential all-star, especially if the Magic remain in the playoff hunt. But for now, I think, that slow start just kind of took him down a little bit. Julius Randle is another guy. He's been putting it together as of late, but the numbers are just still far too low for me to put him on this list at this point. So, but okay, I think that's everything for the Eastern Conference for right now. If we missed anybody, let us know down below in the comments. We went through a lot of names, so might be a chance we forgot someone. Let's get over to the Western Conference. We can go ahead and get to our starting guards first. Do you want to go ahead and start off?
Sure. Okay. All right. So I was just like the East. I was between 3, and I
agree.
And I picked one. In my opinion, the obvious one was Luka.
Yeah, Luka's obvious.
I think that was the one you had to pick, and I think we're gonna have the same second pick. I picked Shai.
I also went with Shai.
I know you went for the bias, but I went because Steph has been really good, and the rest of his team has been straight up doo-doo. But I just think the Thunder have been the better team to start, and Shai's numbers aren't that much worse. So
I mean, in terms of like points per game, it's a little bit lower, but the rebounding's better, the defense is better with Shai as well. Yeah, one of the big things for Steph is you can see how bad the team is when he's not on the court. Like it's a disaster when he's not out there. So I think there's a pretty good argument for Steph playing over Shai if the game started right now in the starting lineup, and he would end up there because of the popularity with the fan vote as well. But I think you could go either way. It's, again, the same thing as the East. If you put any combination of Shai, Luka, Steph, don't think you're wrong. I think those guys have been pretty clearly the 3 best guards in the Western Conference so far.
All right. And center, Jokic.
Duh.
I mean, duh.
Yeah. Forwards, I have Kevin Durant and LeBron James.
Dang, man. 5 for 5.
5 for 5. There we go.
Look at that go. Okay. Now, I think the reserves is where it can get a little bit more spicy.
Yeah, it does get a little bit more difficult down here. Just real quick for Kevin Durant, he's been carrying the Suns with Devin Booker.
I knew he was cooping, but his stats are incredible.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable so far this season. Like, I'll go ahead and share them with y'all. 31.1 points per game, 30.1 points per game, 51.4% from the field, 45.5% from deep, 7 boards, 4.7 assists, 1.2 steals. He's been unbelievable.
And can I shout out a LeBron James stat? Do you know what LeBron James is shooting from the field?
LeBron right now is probably shooting like,
what's your guess?
53?
57.
He's shooting a lot better than I thought. Or not a lot better, but he's shooting better than I thought. Yeah, 57 is ridiculous.
So he's shooting 57% from the field and putting up 37% from 3 too, by the way. He's putting up 25, 8, and 6.
You could even round that 8 up to a 9. It's 8.6. You could even give him that if you wanted to.
8.6.
Yeah, well, Ryan, we're being positive today.
You're right. My bad. I didn't want to discount his 0.6 boards. That's my bad.
You forgot the message. Well, we all make mistakes. But yeah, he's been great so far. I think him and Anthony Davis have both been good, even though the Lakers have struggled to put together consistent wins, partially because of injuries to the roster and just inconsistent play around them. But yeah. Cam Reddish, hey, he's playing all right.
He actually is. But it's just like if you're to the point where you have to start Cam Reddish when he was cut from like the Blazers, who were atrocious towards the end of last year, you know that your roster crunch is currently pretty horrendous.
Yeah, it happens. DeAndre Hunter just got ejected for 2 flagrant fouls. So
dang, bro. Okay.
Yeah. DeAndre's getting aggressive. I don't know.
I don't have the game up obviously because we're doing this, but
yeah. All right, 2 guards. Steph Curry, I think, is obviously the first guard off the bench.
You both have that, I'm sure.
Starting lineup. Who's your other guard?
My other guard. So it might be a hot take because he hasn't played a lot, but when he's played, he's been amazing. I have De'Aaron Fox.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I didn't have De'Aaron Fox on here because of the games.
I think he's averaging 30 points per game, and I just think he's been killing it, so I went with him.
I mean, that's fair. Like, it really, between the two of us, like, games don't matter a ton at this point with there only being 12 to, like, I think the Rockets have only played 9 so far, which is weird scheduling. They played on, like, Monday or Sunday and have not played until tonight, like, this whole week, which has been strange. But
and then real quick before you say yours, I think the reason why I picked Fox despite the injury stuff is just there really isn't a lot of guards that were putting up really good numbers that, like, does that make sense? Like, if there was another guard putting up like 25 points per game, that I was just like, oh yeah, he probably should be an all-star, and Fox hasn't played enough, so he should get the spot over Fox. There really isn't a lot of that, unless there might be one player who you might have as your second guard who I put as a wing. So we'll see what you have him as.
I have Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I have him as a wing.
Okay. Yeah, like positions are weird in the NBA, so we're gonna have stuff different. Yeah, I have Ant here at the 2-guard spot. He's been phenomenal. The Wolves have been one of the best teams in the NBA so far. Put up 26 points per game, 5.8 boards, 5.2 assists, 47% from the field, 37% from deep. It's been a great start this season for Ant. He's looking like an all-star again, like he was last year. And yeah, it's Anthony Edwards. I don't think I have to say too much. So I have him there at my second guard spot.
Then who are your 3 wings?
I have Paul George at one of my first
I also
spots.
have Paul George.
Okay.
I didn't realize how good of a year he was having, actually.
He's been fantastic. Well, started off really hot, struggled a bit through the first couple of hard games, but it seems like recently he's kind of figuring it out more. I then have Domantas Sabonis.
I also have Sabonis. Oh, do we go 3 for 3 again?
Anthony Davis.
Well, obviously I didn't have AD here because I had Ant. So
yeah.
2 for 3 there.
We were gonna miss on someone. Yeah, Sabonis is the guy I put in here for the Kings. Again, Fox has only played 5 games to this point, so I didn't include him on this, but Sabonis is putting up 19 points per game, 13 boards, 7 assists. He's been incredible, like kept the Kings afloat despite De'Aaron Fox missing time. So he deserves to be on here. And Anthony Davis has been great so far as well individually, even if the Lakers haven't been fantastic.
And I know Sabonis isn't really known for his defense, but speaking of the guy, Anthony Davis, I was watching that Kings-Lakers game, and Sabonis just had AD in hell, man.
I mean, he had him in hell on both ends. AD was fighting for his life trying to guard Sabonis.
Sabonis, I don't know. See, I think I'm a little skewed because I do have AD as one of my last 2 in. But, man, I think I might be a little biased from that last game because the way he was getting, like, barbecue chickened on both ends was like, this is supposed to be a top 12 player in the Western Conference, and he's just looking like a complete bozo. Like, I don't know, man. Like,
he has some of those games.
I shouldn't let that skew the rest of the season because he has been pretty good. But
yeah, the Sabonis effect. It happens to all of us.
So who's?
I mean, he's averaging 3.4 blocks per game. Like that's,
So AD's one of my last 2 in. Who are your 2?
My last two are Rudy Gobert, and I went with Alperen Şengün for my last guy.
So I didn't have Gobert because there's another guy on here which I think you kind of snubbed. And the only reason I didn't have Gobert was because I had AD and Sabonis already on the bench, and I probably would have picked Şengün over Gobert. Şengün was my first two out.
Depoy Gobert is back, Ryan. You're a hater.
Well, you're missing out on All-Star Lauri Markkanen, so.
I thought about Lowry. The Jazz have just been rough. I felt like the Rockets were deserving of someone, and Şengün's been great. Gobert is playing out of his mind defensively. He's the big reason why the Wolves are as good as they are with that defense. So
Matt called Gobert be on your team, by the way.
Well, because Matt knows that I know basketball, so it's fine.
Gobert was on my first two out were Gobert and Şengün. So
yeah, I think with what Gobert's doing defensively, he had to be on my list. And Şengün's been great. Like he's been the best player on the Rockets team that's surprising people. So yeah, I gave him that nod. He's been their most consistent guy so far.
I think something that was really, really, really hard for me that I really wanted to include him, even though he's only played like 2 or 3 games. I really want to put Devin Booker on my team.
That was the guy when we were talking earlier about, I realize now Fox also applied to this, but we were talking about guys that hadn't played very many games. Book was the number one guy that I thought about because when he's played, he's been unbelievable so far. But the problem is he's only played 3 games. Mm-hmm. So.
And real quick, too, just to defend my honor, I know the Jazz have been great, but Lauri Markkanen, 24 points per game, almost 50% from the field, 43% from 3, 8.6 boards, 1.5 assists. So
Lowry's been really good.
Another year. The team around him just reeks. And Walker Kessler has been out too, hasn't he? Which that probably hurts on the defensive end.
Yeah, they've had some weird stuff going on. Like
they've changed their starting point guard 3 times this year.
Yeah. Some other guys I think are deserving of honorable mentions. Desmond Bane, we talked about him earlier. He's been good so far for the Grizzlies, even though it's been a disaster pretty much beyond him and like Jaren Jackson Jr. at times. Mm-hmm. He's also having a pretty good season so far, 19 points per game, 6.1 boards. He's being forced to play more of a center role than that's not really what he's supposed to do. Zion and Brandon Ingram have both been having fine seasons. They're not like blowing people away so far.
That's how I was talking about them when I was trying to do my group think with Matt. I was just like, they're both fine, but neither one of I'm not looking at like their stats or I haven't been watching them play. I'm just like, oh, they've been that dude this year. And I know they've also been in and out of the lineup. Zion had, I think, a birth of a child. Ingram had a couple little injuries. So they've been in and out of the lineup too, which I think kind of hurts their case too. But with CJ, missing extended time, I mean, they're going to have to pick it up if the Pelicans want to stay afloat. So I think one of those guys could sneak their way on here, depending on how the rest of this stretch goes. But
yeah, they just gotta move up the standings a little bit too. Like they're kind of middle of the pack right now, with neither one of them blowing me away in terms of their stats. So those are 2 guys. Like Kawhi Leonard's been all right this season statistically.
No. I didn't even put him on my honorable mention list, bro. He's been so good.
He's putting up 20.5 points per game, 5.2 boards, 3.7 assists, 1.7 steals.
Kawhi, man, that's not acceptable, bro.
Like, I don't think it's worthy of being on the list at this point. I don't know. It still feels like the Harden situation's weird, where he doesn't know when to be aggressive and when to not. And even at the start of the year, it feels like he's almost coasting a little bit at this point. Like he's not going as hard as maybe he could when they get to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But I do think Kawhi is, as one of those bigger names, deserving of some recognition, I guess, in some way. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everybody. Obviously, like Jamal Murray, because he's been injured for a majority of the season out there in the Western Conference. Yeah, go for it.
Where did he go? No, I just lost him on my list. Oh, first of all, hold that thought. I have to let the dog out.
Okay. I'll go ahead and give a couple more. I think people talked about Vic and Chet as guys that could potentially threaten for a first-year All-Star appearance.
I really thought you were going to sneak Chet on your team, by the way.
Nah, I didn't. I thought about it for a moment, but I didn't. Vic has been having a pretty good rookie season, 18.6 points per game, 9.3 boards, 2.5 dimes, 2.4 blocks. He's been good so far. The Spurs just aren't great. His efficiency hasn't been fantastic, which is to be expected for a rookie guy who's trying to get entry passes from no guards at all on the San Antonio Spurs.
What do you mean, bro? Jeremy Sochan.
Man. So Sohan's been rough. I don't love the whole Jeremy Sochan point guard.
He's a fine player, but just not in this role.
He's just not a point guard. Chet's been great. 15.5 points per game, shooting 50, 40, 90, 7.8 boards, 2.6 assists, 2.2 blocks, anchor of our defense, which has been top 10 so far. I think if he was putting up like gaudier stats, or say by the say by the end of the pre All-Star period in the season, Chet's putting up like kind of similar stats, maybe a bit better, and the Thunder are like one of the top seeds and we're like one of the best defenses. Like if stuff builds like that, I could see Chet trying to make a push, but for right now, I think Shea's the only guy who's probably earned his way onto this team, despite my bias wanting to make me put someone else on here.
One guy I want to shout out simply because he was on my All-Star draft team, which I wish we had the Google Doc of that pulled up still, because I'm very curious if anyone that we picked was on that.
I have it right now.
All right, so real quick before you get there, Jeremy Grant was on mine, and he's putting up 23 points per game. I know the Blazers stink, but I remember when I picked him for my list, I said the Blazers are gonna be very bad, and someone has to score the ball. So if they somehow stay afloat, and Jeremy Grant puts up like a Pistons type of year when he was their number one option, he could sneak on, and he's kind of doing that. So shout out to me for at least picking a fringe guy for my list.
There you go. Yes, I do actually have the list so far, and I'm kind of blowing you out.
Oh no!
The more I take a look at this, so I have Jalen Brunson on my team. He was my number 1 overall pick.
Okay.
Your first pick was Mikal Bridges, who hasn't been
which
great
stinks
so far.
because I mean I think that makes sense. That was a good pick.
No, it does make sense.
I'm not mad at that.
We're trying to predict. I've got Paolo Banchero as the second guy on my list. You've got Jamal Murray, who was looking good, but his injury is going to definitely
that sucks because I feel like with Booker's injury, Beal hasn't been playing. Fox has been hurt a little bit. I feel like Jamal, if the Nuggets stayed really good and Jamal was still playing, I think he could have snuck on.
Yeah, that one's unfortunate. I had Evan Mobley, hasn't been an All-Star caliber player yet. You had Desmond Bane, who, if the Grizzlies were better, could be in consideration. Fourth guy I had was Victor Wembanyama. Again, we talked about him a moment ago. You had Jeremy Grant. I had Tyrese Maxey as my fifth pick.
Dang,
he fell that far.
First of all, we both fumbled. He was gonna be my next pick in that one, but first of all, I fumbled letting him get that low.
Yeah,
and we both fumbled, I guess. But we didn't know about the Harden thing. If we knew
that was the thing. If we knew Harden wasn't going to be there, I think he would have been one of the first guys off the board.
I agree.
So, it's tough. Thank you. Your fifth pick was OG Anunoby.
I guess Scotty Barnes is kind of. Did any of us pick Scotty?
We're getting to that.
Okay.
I had Cade Cunningham as my next pick. We didn't talk about Cade at all. He's been putting up fine stats, but the efficiency's rough. The Pistons are just really bad.
Really inconsistent this year.
Turning the ball over a lot. Mm-hmm. You had Kyle Kuzma, who's playing like an All-Star caliber player, but the Wizards have been bad.
Dang, I'm the king of picking the guys on the bad teams that are really good.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. You pick guys that had good volume.
I have the Tank Commanders.
I had Tyler Hero, which isn't a bad pick with the way he was playing to start the season. You had Austin Reeves, which has been a bad pick so far.
Yeah, his last 2 or 3 games have been pretty good, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe he'll turn it up. I had Scotty Barnes with my 8th pick.
That's probably looking like the best pick so far.
That was clutch. That was great value down there at the 8th pick. Your 8th pick was Jabari Smith Jr. Hasn't been an All-Star quite yet.
But I mean, like did either of us pick Şengün?
No, we talked about him at the end. Neither of us picked him though, which was a fumble. My 9th pick was Chet Holmgren. Yours was Josh Giddey. We went back to back with a couple Thunder guys. 10 for me was Anthony Simons. Yours was DeAndre Ayton, back to back with Blazers.
Both L's, because Ayton's been horrible and Simons is out.
He's been picking it up. He just hasn't been an All-Star.
What'd you say?
He's been picking it up. He's just
Ayton's been bad, man.
I don't think he's been
gambles on him often.
He hasn't been as bad as people have been saying. Like the numbers aren't insane. He just doesn't shoot a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. He just doesn't seem like he's impacting the game like I thought he would. I don't know.
He's just kind of taking more of a back seat, which I don't like. I would like to see him be involved more.
Like, dude thought he was the man, and so the guy on the team that's supposed to be the man, Simons, is gone, and their number 1 pick is also gone. So it's like, all right, bro, go crazy, and he's just like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm just hanging out here.
You'll regret this when the Ayton Renaissance comes here soon.
I mean, I thought he was going to be in a run. I thought that's why I picked him.
You're one of the Ayton believers, and he let you down. One of his disciples. Mm-hmm. At the 11th pick for me, I had Devin Vassell, who's been good, but the Spurs haven't been great. Yeah. You had RJ Barrett, which looks like one of your better picks so far. Okay. He's been really good so far. At 12, I had Jalen Green. And at 12, you had Miles Bridges was your final pick.
Which I have to say, even though this is his first game, he's kind of hooping. So
we do not care. We do not care. But yeah, so far for me on the list, Brunson looks like he might be an All-Star. Tyrese Maxey, Scotty Barnes all look like pretty viable options. I've also got Paolo Banchero in the wings. Victor Wembanyama, maybe Evan Mobley, like some interesting guys. For you, Mikal could get back to that point. We'll see. Jamal Murray, if he gets healthy in time, potentially.
But how much longer is he out for?
Till the end of November, and then he's supposed to be back. So
okay, so there's time for him. He could recoup.
There's time. But yeah, I would say probably for you, the only you don't really have any guaranteed guys right now. Like Mikal's interesting, Jamal is, Bane maybe, RJ looks interesting. Like you've got some interesting guys, but for me, I think Maxey and Brunson are gonna probably end up being locks, or Maxey's a lock for sure. So
yeah,
it's interesting. You've got some guys who you need a big comeback in this next portion of the season to try and catch up with me, because so far I'm kind of killing you. But
that's okay. I've seen better comebacks.
That's true. But yeah, I think that's everything we've got for now. Yeah, do you have anything else? I'm trying to think. Like, again, we talked about the Clippers a little bit. They've been kind of the biggest story in the season so far, or I guess since the last time we potted. Just not been great over there in Los Angeles. The Hornets did end up getting blown out by the Bucks. They're down 20 at this point. So
that's
so much
talking about that.
Yeah, so much for them. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. We'll have to have a deeper conversation about the Clippers. If they lose again tonight, this is a chance for them to finally go ahead and beat the Houston Rockets. But yeah, who you got in that game? Who you got in that game?
Oh, Houston's winning.
Houston's winning. I think LA finally gets it done. They're at home. Like, I don't see them. This is the Harden revenge game against the Rockets. This is his chance.
All-star Jabari Smith Jr. is going to have a good game.
This is where he starts. And my all-star Jalen Green is going to pop off, and just a narrow loss against all-star Kawhi Leonard in the future. But yeah, I think that's everything we've got for y'all for this episode. We appreciate y'all watching as always. Like I said earlier, leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell here on the channel too, so you can pay attention. I kind of got into my usual YouTube intro and outro there for a moment. But yeah, if you made it to this point in the episode, comment down below. What should we go for? What's something we should go for in this one? We're never able to think of this on the fly. It never works.
Oh man. Comment. Wow, this is embarrassing.
Yeah, this is really tough, huh?
Everyone's probably just clicking off now anyways.
Yeah, everyone's clicked off at this point. But if you're still here, comment down below. Rudy Gobert's an all-star. Drop me one of those down below in the comments to make up for
but if you are still here, you should say Dame Lillard is not an all-star.
You pick your team. Team Rudy Gobert or Team Damian Lillard. Pick them down below. But yeah. I think that's everything we've got. Ryan, anything you want to wrap up with real quick?
Nah, man, I'm just sick of coughing, so hopefully my vid goes away.
Feel that one. All right, y'all. We'll see y'all later. Take care until next episode. Peace.